The Legend of Jigong, Chapter 106.
Okay, let's plunge right into the climax of this trial. The setting is the yamen, which is the local magistrate's headquarters and courtroom.
Right, the absolute center of local authority.
Yes, and the magistrate is seated high up behind his desk, literally holding the authority of life and death. And we are dropping into the action right at the moment a major conspiracy unravels. There's a man named Sun Erhu kneeling on the floor.
And he is not having a good time.
Not at all. He is completely broken down under the pressure of the court. He's sweating, he's terrified, and he is loudly confessing to a calculated, utterly ruthless plot against his own family member. His widowed sister-in-law, a woman named Sun Kangxi.
The anatomy of the frame-up that Sun Erhu reveals in his confession is, frankly, chilling. And it's chilling precisely because it lacks any heat or passion.
Right, it's not like a crime of passion.
Exactly. This is not a crime driven by a sudden burst of emotion or some long-standing familial blood feud. It is a strictly bureaucratic, cold-blooded financial maneuver. I mean, Sun Erhu is the one confessing, but he makes it very clear that he is merely the blunt instrument here.
He's just the pawn.
Yes, the architect of the entire plot is actually a respected member of the educated class. He's a physician named Dr. Xu Jingkui.
The dynamic between these two men is so fascinating to me, because according to the text, Sun Erhu was frequently going to Dr. Zhu to borrow money. He is completely strapped for cash, totally reliant on this doctor for loans.
Which creates a massive power imbalance right from the start.
Exactly. Dr. Zhu sees this dynamic and realizes he has a perfectly pliable, desperate pawn. And he starts laying the groundwork with this really subtle psychological manipulation. Out of nowhere, he starts referring to Sun Erhu as a, quote, wealthy man.
Which must have been so confusing for Sun.
Sun is entirely confused.
Yeah.
He looks at his own empty pockets and basically says, what are you talking about? I don't have a copper coin to my name. I'm obviously not a wealthy man.
That right there is the hook. Dr. Xu is planting a seed of entitlement in a desperate man's mind. He casually reminds Sun Erhu of a specific structural reality of his family, which is that Sun's older brother has passed away, leaving behind the widow, Sun Kangxi.
Right, the sister-in-law.
But more importantly, the brother left behind an estate valued at 30,000 silver taels. And we really need to contextualize that number because 30,000 silver taels is not just comfortable living.
It's a huge amount, right?
Massive. In the context of this era, that is multi-generational wealth. It is the kind of money that entirely alters the destiny of a family line.
Wow. So it is a literal fortune sitting right next door, currently controlled by a woman who, well, in the eyes of this highly patriarchal society, is incredibly vulnerable.
Extremely vulnerable.
And Dr. Zhu doesn't just point at the money. He provides this meticulous mathematical breakdown to push Sun Erhu over the edge. He explains the estate laws of the time.
He really breaks it down for him.
He does. He tells Sun, look, if you can somehow convince your sister-in-law to remarry and leave the household, the fortune gets divided. She might take 10,000 taels as her portion. Another 10,000 would be absorbed by the broader clan structure.
Right.
But that leaves a clean 10,000 silver taels entirely for you because you're the closest male heir.
It is a brilliant, albeit completely malicious, piece of financial grooming. Dr. Zhu is basically telling Sun Erhu that his poverty is just a temporary illusion. It's an administrative error that just needs a little nudge to be corrected.
It's got to fix the paperwork, basically.
Exactly. And the doctor knows that Sun Erhu will eventually have to pay back his loans. If Sun suddenly comes into 10,000 taels, Dr. Zhu is perfectly positioned to extract a significant portion of that wealth for himself.
Through, like, continued advisement or just calling in debt?
Precisely. It's a long con.
So Sun Erhu takes the bait. He goes to the widow, Sun Kangxi, and pitches the idea of her remarrying. But the widow completely shuts him down. I mean, she doesn't just decline. She scolds him severely.
She puts him right in his place.
Yeah, she enforces her status as the head of the household, and Sun Erhu is strictly forbidden from ever bringing the topic up again. So the front door is closed, and this is where Dr. Zhu pivots from, subtle manipulation to outright conspiracy. He isn't going to let this potential payday vanish just because the widow has strong moral principles.
And Dr. Zhu's reaction here really reveals the depth of his cynicism. Since the widow won't leave voluntarily through remarriage, she has to be forced out. She has to be disinherited entirely.
Right, they have to get her out of the picture.
Yes. And the only way to disinherit a virtuous widow who is legally entitled to control her late husband's estate is to completely destroy her virtue in the eyes of the law and society.
I am looking at this dynamic, and I keep thinking about how scammers operate today. I mean, think about modern older fraud or sophisticated trust manipulation.
Oh, the parallels are striking.
The mastermind never wants to leave their fingerprints on the actual crime. They find someone who has legal access, like a disgruntled nephew or an underpaid caretaker, and they convince that person that they are actually the victim, that they deserve the money. Dr. Zhu is keeping his hands clinically clean while weaponizing Sun Erhu's greed.
He's the ultimate puppet master.
Right. But looking at the source, I have to wonder about the doctor's underlying motive. Was there a romantic or, like, a lustful angle here? Was Dr. Zhu trying to orchestrate this so that he could swoop in and marry the wealthy widow once she was alienated from her clan?
That's a great question, and the text actually explicitly addresses and dismisses that possibility, which honestly only highlights how cold the conspiracy truly is.
Really? How so?
Well, during their planning, Sun Erhu actually poses that exact question to the doctor. He says, look, your own wife passed away recently. You must be doing this because you want my sister-in-law for yourself.
That makes sense that he'd think that.
Right, but Dr. Xu denies it entirely. He insists his only goal is for Sun Erhu to get rich. He has absolutely no desire to marry her. In fact, when Sun Erhu offers to act as a formal matchmaker between the doctor and the widow, Dr. Zhu only agrees to a non-committal wait-and-see approach.
Because he knows it won't work anyway.
Exactly. He already knows the widow is fiercely protective of her independence and would never agree to it. There is no crime of passion here. The destruction of this woman's life is purely a financial return on investment. It is just a calculated line item on a ledger for him.
Man, that makes the trigger they decide to use even more despicable. Dr. Xu tells Sun Erhu that he has been observing the widow. He saw her standing by her door buying thread from a vendor, and he noticed that her belly was visibly swollen.
A crucial observation.
Right, she physically looks heavily pregnant, and she's been a widow for 3 entire years.
We really have to pause and consider the societal weight of that observation. In the historical and cultural context of this narrative, a widow becoming pregnant is not just, a personal scandal. It is an existential threat to her survival.
It's everything.
It is everything. The societal expectation of widow chastity was immensely powerful. If a widow was found to be unchaste, it would instantly destroy her reputation. It would bring immense shame upon her deceased husband's entire clan. And crucially for this plot, it would entirely sever her legal right to remain the head of that household and control the estate. Her virtue is literally the only currency keeping her in power.
So Dr. Xu realizes he has the ultimate leverage. He doesn't just tell Sun Erhu to go yell at her, though. He physically arms him.
Right. He hands him a weapon.
He hands Sun Erhu a knife. He tells this desperate, greedy man to go confront his sister-in-law, to explicitly accuse her of having an illicit affair, and to terrify her into fleeing the house. And Dr. Xu anticipates the friction, too. He tells Sun, if she fights back, if this whole thing escalates and ends up in court, do not panic.
Because he has a backup plan.
Exactly. Dr. Zhu claims he has the institutional system totally rigged. He says he has a corrupt clerk, a man named Dufang, who works directly in the penal department entirely in his pocket.
The inside man.
Yes. He assures Sun Erhu, just make a scene, file the lawsuit. I have the inside track with the bureaucracy to ensure we win the case, she gets cast out in disgrace, and you inherit the fortune.
It is a devastatingly comprehensive conspiracy when you lay it all out. Look at the layers Dr. Zhu has constructed here. You have the initial psychological grooming of the pawn. You have the introduction of a deadly physical threat with the knife. You have the deliberate weaponization of strict societal norms regarding female chastity.
It's so multi-layered.
It really is.
Yeah.
And finally, you have the planned exploitation of institutional corruption through the compromised clerk. It is an entirely stacked deck. For an isolated widow facing this combination of physical danger, societal ruin, and a rigged legal system, there is seemingly no escape.
The pressure on her must be absolutely unimaginable. But the conspiracy ultimately shatters. We are back in the courtroom. The pressure has broken Sun Erhu, and he has laid all of this out before the magistrate. He has confessed to the knife, the manipulation, the doctor's involvement, all of it.
Everything is out in the open.
Yes, and the magistrate's reaction is a fascinating study in how authority and justice operate in this text. The wrath he unleashes is swift. It is highly creative, and it is brutally tailored to the individuals involved.
The pivot the magistrate makes here is incredibly telling. He has Sun Erhu kneeling and confessing, right? But he immediately turns his primary focus onto Dr. Xu. The legal system in this narrative, guided by the magistrate, possesses this sharp intuition for recognizing where the true malice actually originates.
Right, the mastermind versus the tool.
Exactly. Sun Erhu is guilty of assault and greed, obviously, but Dr. Zhu is guilty of subverting the very moral order of society.
And the magistrate is absolutely furious. He slams his gavel on the desk, which the text refers to as a Jingtang Mu.
Yes, a specific block of warning wood used by officials to command attention.
Right. He slams it down and he verbally tears Dr. Zhu apart. He zeroes in on the hypocrisy of it all. He looks at this respected physician and basically says, you are a man who reads, you are an educated professional. You belong to a class that is supposed to uphold the moral fabric of this community, and yet you dare to sit in the shadows, plot to steal from a vulnerable widow, and intentionally instigate warfare within a family.
It's a profound dressing down.
Oh, completely. And then, rather than just handing down a sentence, the magistrate offers the doctor an ultimatum, a choice. He asks, do you admit to a beating or do you admit to a fine?
This choice is such a brilliant psychological trap, and the doctor walks right into it.
He takes the bait.
He does. Dr. Zhu is a man of status and wealth. For someone in his position, enduring a severe public beating from the Yamen guards is not just physically agonizing, it is socially fatal. It reduces him to the level of a common street criminal in front of everyone.
So he panics.
He acts exactly as his class conditioning dictates, and he immediately opts to leverage his wealth to save his skin. He tells the magistrate, I am willing to accept the fine.
And the magistrate executes the ultimate judicial double-cross.
It's fantastic.
He looks at the doctor and says, if you had chosen the beating, I would have had you punished heavily with the boards. But since you chose the fine, I am going to fine you 3,000 silver taels. And just to ensure I save your face as an educated man, I'm also going to have you beaten 100 times with a ruler.
It is a masterstroke of punitive theater. But honestly, the true genius of the magistrate's ruling lies in where that 3,000 silver taels is directed.
Oh, this part is amazing.
The money extracted from this corrupt, scheming doctor doesn't just disappear into the opaque coffers of the regional government. The magistrate explicitly decrees that the entirety of the 3,000 taels must be used to construct a chastity arch dedicated specifically to the widow, Sun Kangxi.
That detail absolutely blew my mind. A chastity arch built with the villain's own money. It is weaponized architectural justice. The doctor tried to ruin her reputation to steal her money, and the judge forces him to bankrupt himself to build a permanent public monument to her unassailable virtue.
We should really unpack the cultural significance of a chastity arch, or a paifeng, because it elevates this from a clever punishment to a profound social restoration for the widow.
Yeah, tell me more about that. What exactly is a chastity arch?
So in traditional Chinese society, an imperial chastity arch was not just like a nice statue in the town square. It was a massive structural honor, often requiring official bureaucratic approval all the way up the chain. It physically altered the landscape of the town.
Like a major public works project?
Yes. When a family was awarded one for a virtuous widow, it brought immense social prestige to the entire clan, and it often came with tangible benefits like tax exemptions or favorable standing with local officials. By forcing Dr. Zhu to fund this massive stone or wooden archway, the magistrate is permanently elevating the social and civic status of the victim.
And doing it with the attacker's wallet.
Exactly. He is completely draining the resources of the perpetrator. Every single time the doctor walks through his town for the rest of his life, he has to look up at a towering monument to his own failure and her triumph.
It is incredible. But the magistrate isn't done. He turns his attention back to the pawn, Sun Erhu.
Yeah.
And the sentence handed down here is vastly different. The magistrate orders Sun Erhu to receive 40 heavy boards and to spend 100 days wearing the kang.
A very different kind of punishment.
Totally. If we compare the two sentences, the mastermind gets a massive fine and a humiliating slapping with a ruler, while the pawn gets heavily beaten with wooden boards and subjected to prolonged public torture. It really begs a deep question about how justice is being measured here. Why is the physical violence doled out so unevenly?
The disparity in the sentences is a direct reflection of the rigid social hierarchy embedded within the legal framework of the era. Dr. Zhu, as a physician, belongs to the educated, literate class. The magistrate explicitly mentions his status as a man who reads.
Right.
Therefore, the justice system targets the attributes that give him power, his wealth, and his social dignity. The magistrate uses a ruler for the 100 strikes. Now, a ruler is not an instrument of severe bodily destruction. It is the tool of a schoolmaster.
Oh, wow. So he's treating him like a kid.
Exactly. By using a ruler, the magistrate is violently infantilizing the doctor. He is treating this wealthy mastermind like a disobedient child who failed to learn his moral lessons. He's effectively preserving his physical life, but shattering his professional dignity. It is, as the magistrate ironically notes, a way to save his face from the heavy boards while entirely destroying his pride.
Meanwhile, son Erhu gets the heavy boards, and these are large wooden paddles designed to break skin and damage muscle, right?
Yes, brutal physical trauma.
He is treated entirely as a physical threat because he was the brute who held the knife.
Yeah.
And then there's the Kang. For anyone picturing, a simple set of handcuffs or stocks, the reality of the Kang is so much darker.
It's horrifying.
It really is. It is a massive, heavy, square wooden collar that locks securely around the prisoner's neck. It rests on the shoulders, bearing down with immense weight. And crucially, the wooden board extends outward far enough that the prisoner cannot bend their elbows to reach their own face or mouth.
The psychological and physiological torment of the Kang cannot be overstated. It is quite literally a tool designed for civic death, because you cannot reach your own mouth, you cannot feed yourself, you cannot give yourself water, you cannot even brush a fly away from your eye.
Are completely helpless.
Entirely. You are entirely reliant on the mercy of your family, assuming they haven't disowned you, or the pity of strangers walking by. And you are not kept in a private cell. You are usually stationed in a highly public place, like the town gates, or right outside the yamen, where the public is free to mock you, spit on you, or hurl abuse.
And son Erhu is sentenced to endure this total stripping of his humanity for 100 days.
100 days. It's almost unsurvivable.
100 days of starvation-level dependency and public abuse. It is a complete eradication of his standing in the community. So the conspiracy is broken. The mastermind is financially ruined and publicly shamed. The violent pawn is physically broken and exiled to the Kang. In a standard legal drama, the gavel drops here, the credits roll, and the case is closed.
But not this text.
And not this text. This is where the narrative takes a sharp left turn into completely unfamiliar territory. Because the magistrate realizes that despite all the confessions and all the punishments, a massive, undeniable piece of physical evidence is still sitting right in the middle of his courtroom.
The central paradox of the case remains entirely unresolved. Son Erhu confessed he made up the rumor about the affair, but the magistrate can clearly see the widow, Sun Kangxi, and her belly is vastly swollen.
Right, she physically presents as a woman in the late stages of pregnancy.
And it is established fact that her husband has been dead for 3 years.
The magistrate is totally trapped between the legal truth he just uncovered and the biological impossibility standing right in front of him. A financial conspiracy explains the motive, sure, but it does not explain human anatomy. The legal system has reached the absolute limit of its jurisdiction here.
He can't legislate away a physical mass.
Exactly. The magistrate cannot subpoena a biological anomaly. So he turns to Jigong. The magistrate looks at him and asks the question that threatens to unravel the entire verdict. He says, how can a 3-year widow be pregnant?
This moment marks such a fascinating transition in the text. We move away from jurisprudence and step deeply into the realm of historical, traditional Chinese medicine and metaphysical biology.
It's a huge genre shift.
It is. Jigong does not operate within the rigid, bureaucratic confines of the yamen. He represents an external, enlightened perspective that can perceive truths the official system just cannot measure. When the magistrate asks the question, he is almost incredulous, warning the monk not to joke around about such a severe matter.
But Jigong isn't joking.
Not at all. He is entirely serious. He looks at the widow and declares unequivocally that she is not pregnant. There is no child. He diagnoses the mass as a blood tumor.
And the explanation he gives for this tumor introduces a deeply specific medical mechanism. He says the mass is formed by qi wrapping around blood. Now, instead of just offering a theory, Jigong decides to provide immediate visceral proof. He reaches into his ragged robes and produces a single pill.
A literal magic pill.
Yes. He hands this medicine to the official matchmaker of the court, a female official, and instructs her to take the widow, Sun Kangxi, into an empty back room of the yamen. The widow is given the pill, and the text describes an instantaneous, shocking reaction. The widow immediately gives birth, but she does not produce a baby. She expels a solid blood egg, a blood tumor the size of a watermelon.
The imagery used here is deliberately grotesque and visceral. The matchmaker, acting as a witness for the court, physically carries this massive watermelon-sized blood tumor out into the main hall to present it to the magistrate.
That is disgusting.
It is. It is physical, irrefutable evidence of the illness. Interestingly, the text notes that even Jigong covers his face with his sleeve and orders them to take it away immediately, acknowledging the sheer foulness of the expelled mass.
It is intensely dramatic. But what elevates this scene, to me anyway, is that Jigong doesn't just perform a magic trick and walk away. He acts as an expert medical witness for the court, providing a highly technical clinical breakdown of exactly what that tumor is, using the accepted medical terminology of the era.
He gives a full lecture.
He does. He explains that a woman's health in this paradigm is fundamentally governed by the flow and regularity of menstrual blood. And he provides a progressive categorization of illness based on the interruption of that cycle.
The text provides a rigorous breakdown of these historical medical theories. Jigong outlines a diagnostic progression. He states that if the menses are missed for 1 month, it is categorized as Jijing, which translates to stagnant menses.
Okay.
If the blockage persists for 2 months, it escalates to bingjing, meaning sick menses. A 3-month absence is termed jingbi, or closed menses. And if this systemic blockage continues for 7 months, it develops into a severe condition called ganshulao, which refers to dry blood consumption, or a laboring of the body as it essentially consumes its own vital reserves.
Wow, so Jigong is outlining a strict timeline of internal stagnation. He explains that this specific type of blood tumor doesn't just appear overnight. It grows month by month as the stagnation worsens, expanding until it perfectly mimics the physical appearance of a late-stage pregnancy.
Right, it's a slow accumulation.
But if we pull back the lens on this explanation, we have to look at the mechanics of why this happens. How exactly does qi wrap around blood to create a watermelon-sized physical mass?
To really understand this, we have to delve into the core mechanics of traditional Chinese medicine. Qi is the vital energy, the life force that flows through the body's meridian channels. Blood is the physical, nourishing substance. In this medical philosophy, qi is the commander of blood. Blood goes where qi pushes it.
Okay, so they move together.
Yes. If the qi flows smoothly, the blood circulates healthily. However, qi is highly susceptible to severe emotional states. Grief, prolonged stress, trauma, or intense anger can cause the flow of qi to stagnate, particularly in the liver meridian, which governs the smooth flow of emotions and blood.
And Sun Kangqi is a widow. She spent the last 3 years in a state of deep mourning, likely under immense stress managing this massive 30,000 tael estate while fending off predatory relatives like Sun Erhu.
Precisely. Her prolonged emotional distress, her intense grief, and her anxiety caused a severe stagnation of her qi. Because her vital energy stopped moving, it could no longer push her blood through its natural cycles. The blood pooled, it coagulated, and over the course of 3 years, the stagnant qi literally wrapped around this coagulated blood.
That's terrifying, actually.
It compounded it month after month until it formed a solid, localized physical mass in her abdomen. Jigong is explaining that her physical deformity is the direct biological manifestation of her prolonged emotional trauma.
That is a profoundly empathetic medical diagnosis. I mean, it frames her illness not as a moral failure or a scandal, but as a physical scar of her difficult life as a widow. But I have to ask about the reality of the pill itself. The medical theory makes conceptual sense within that framework, but a pill that instantly forces the body to expel a massive tumor in a matter of seconds, that is undeniably supernatural.
It certainly is.
Is the text presenting Jigong as a literal magician, or is he supposed to be understood as just an unparalleled physician?
It is a deliberate and masterful fusion of both, which is really the defining characteristic of Jigong in Chinese folklore. He is a wandering ascetic who possesses divine abilities, but he operates within the grounded reality of the common people. The speed and explosive efficacy of the pill are supernatural, sure. It is the deus ex machina required to break the narrative tension and instantly resolve the physical paradox.
Right, they needed a quick fix for the plot.
Exactly. However, the explanation he provides is heavily grounded in the legitimate medical science of his time. By utilizing authentic terminology like Jijing and Jingbi, Jigong validates the experience for the magistrate.
It strikes me that this medical explanation is just as crucial to her survival as the legal ruling. If the court simply found Dr. Zhu guilty of conspiracy, but the widow walked out of the yamen with her belly still swollen, the legal documents wouldn't matter at all. The rumors in the marketplace would persist.
People would talk forever.
Right. People would whisper that Dr. Zhu was framed or that he was right but just went about it the wrong way. The chastity arch would be viewed as a grotesque joke.
You have hit on the exact societal mechanism at play here. A legal exoneration is merely paperwork. In a society governed by face and reputation, she required a total biological exoneration. By producing the physical tumor and having an enlightened authority figure publicly define it as an illness of stagnation rather than the result of an illicit affair, Jigong completely sanitizes her reputation.
He gives her a clean slate.
He removes the fuel for the gossip. It is the final necessary step to restore her social standing and secure her rightful place in the clan.
It is complete victory for the widow. The villains are punished, the evidence is cleared, her virtue is monumentalized. The magistrate has successfully navigated a tremendously complex case. But the magistrate is a meticulous bureaucrat, and he realizes he has a few loose ends to tie up before he can close the docket for the day. Earlier during the trial, before the conspiracy was fully exposed, there was a major disruption in the courtroom.
Yes, the text notes Lai Ming and Chen Long physically draw their weapons right there in the main hall of the Yamen.
Drawing a weapon in a magistrate's court is an incredible offense. It is a direct challenge to the authority of the state. The magistrate, having just finished dispensing harsh justice to the doctor and the pawn, pivots his attention to these two unruly men. He is fully prepared to start handing out more beatings and throwing people in prison for contempt of court.
He's on a roll.
He is. He is also looking to arrest Dufang, the corrupt clerk in the penal department that Sun Erhu named during his confession.
The magistrate is in pure enforcement mode. He sees Lai Ming and Chen Liang simply as violent thugs disrupting the peace of his court. But Jigong, who has just solved the medical mystery, intervenes once again to adjust the magistrate's perspective. He stops the judge and says, "Before I left the Yamen the other day, I placed a note under your bamboo tally cup. If you look at it, you will understand the situation."
I want to visualize this tally cup because it's a great detail of the setting. The magistrate's desk isn't just a simple table. It's equipped with all the tools of his office. He has a container holding bamboo slips, or tally.
Right, tokens of authority.
Exactly. When he wants to order a beating or an arrest, he dramatically throws one of these tallies onto the floor for the guards to execute. Jigong tells him to look underneath this specific cup of authority. The magistrate lifts it up, and hidden underneath is a small note containing a 4-line poem left by the monk.
And the poem is concise, but its impact is absolute. It reads, "Don't treat good citizens as thieves. Thanks to disciples Yang, Lei, and Chen for defeating the bandits at Mijia Lake."
It is an instant perspective shift. The magistrate reads this poem, and suddenly, the entire context of these two rough, weapon-drawing men changes. They aren't court disruptors at all. They are Lai Ming and Chen Liang, disciples of the holy monk. And they haven't been causing trouble. They've been out in the wild, operating beyond the reach of the local police force, entirely dismantling a bandit stronghold at Mijia Lake.
This plays into a deeply satisfying literary trope. The official system, constrained by its bureaucracy, misidentifies the true heroes as criminals because they just don't fit the polished mold of a law-abiding citizen.
Right, they don't look the part.
They are scruffy, they are violent, and they disrespect decorum. But when the truth is revealed, the authority figure must humble himself and recognize that these rough men are actually the ones doing the heavy lifting to keep the region safe. And the timing of this revelation is crucial because it forces the magistrate to immediately contrast these vigilante heroes with the rot inside his own house.
Exactly. Right after realizing he almost punished the heroes, he remembers Dufang, the internal clerk who was acting as the insurance policy for the villains. Dufang represents a systemic vulnerability. Think of him like a malicious network administrator in a modern corporation.
That's a great comparison.
Right. He isn't the one actively robbing the vault, but he is the guy leaving the digital back doors wide open and deleting the security footage so the thieves are guaranteed to get away with it.
Yeah.
He corrupts the entire system from within.
The contrast is sharp and intentional. Lai Ming and Chen Liang exist outside the law but possess absolute moral clarity. Dufang exists inside the law, wears the uniform of authority, but possesses absolutely no moral center.
A total parasite.
When the magistrate realizes this, his reaction to the corrupt clerk is incredibly swift. He doesn't bother dragging Dufang in for a prolonged trial. He doesn't ask for a confession. He issues an immediate administrative decree. He fires Dufang on the spot, citing him for corruption, taking bribes, and fabricating legal documents to harm the public good.
He just axes him from the system. It is a very satisfying moment of karmic justice. The text is making it clear that in a world overseen by figures like Jigong, absolutely nothing is left unpunished. The overarching conspiracy fails, the mastermind pays, the pawn suffers, and even the mid-level corrupt bureaucrat who is only tangentially involved gets instantly purged from his comfortable job.
It demonstrates the ideal functioning of justice in vernacular literature. The legal system itself is shown to be inherently flawed. It relies on easily corrupted clerks, it can be manipulated by the wealthy, and it struggles to differentiate between a vigilante hero and a thug. But when the system is guided by enlightened divine intervention, represented by Jigong's foresight and his hidden poem, it is capable of acting with ruthless efficiency to excise the rot and reward the righteous.
So the courtroom is finally cleansed. The magistrate turns back to Lei Ming and Chen Liang, no longer viewing them as criminals, but as assets. He doesn't punish them for drawing their swords. Instead, he orders their weapons to be returned to them. He reaches into the treasury and rewards them with 10 silver taels for their service at Magia Lake.
Which is a solid payout.
The heroes formally thank the magistrate. They pay their respects to their master, Jigong, who essentially tells them they did a good job even if they ended up meddling in courtroom affairs. With their silver in hand and their names cleared, they walk out of the yamen, leave the city, and hit the open road.
Which brings us to one of the most abrupt and fascinating tonal shifts in the entire narrative.
It's absolute whiplash. I mean, we have just spent hours dissecting a tragic widow facing utter financial ruin, horrific torture devices like the Kang, bizarre ancient gynecology, and high-stakes courtroom drama. And suddenly, we are plunged into what is essentially a buddy comedy at a roadside motel.
It really is. But this transition serves a very specific structural purpose in wuxia and traditional Chinese storytelling. The heavy, oppressive atmosphere of the state-run courtroom is left behind. Lei Ming and Chen Liang travel away from the city until the sun sets, and they seek lodging at a place called the San Yi, or the Three Prophets Inn.
Okay.
They are exhausted from fighting bandits and dealing with magistrates. They eat a meal, they take off their heavy gear, and they collapse into sleep in the north room of the courtyard.
It is a moment of total vulnerability for them, and they wake up the next morning to discover that they've been completely compromised. They look around the room, and their weapons are still there. Their money is still there.
Everything important is untouched.
Right. But they have been robbed of one highly specific item. Someone has stolen their pants. Both pairs.
It is a surgically precise theft. Nothing of actual value or utility for combat is missing, just the trousers.
The visual that text paints here is incredible. You have to picture these two hardened martial artists. They just dismantled a bandit camp at Magia Lake. They stood down a furious magistrate, and now they are sitting on the edge of their beds in a cheap inn, wrapped tightly in their hero cloaks, completely pantsless and blushing furiously.
It's hilarious.
They are so deeply embarrassed by this situation that they refuse to call out for the innkeeper. They are whispering to each other, trying to figure out how to navigate a motel without trousers.
It is a brilliant moment of humanization. These larger-than-life warriors are reduced to absurd embarrassment. It completely punctures the heavy, serious mythos of the martial artist. Eventually, reality sets in, and they realize they cannot stay in the room forever.
They have to get out eventually.
They swallow their pride, call the innkeeper, and explain that they need him to go to the market and buy them some new pants, regardless of the exorbitant costs.
But the innkeeper, completely oblivious to their humiliation, comes back with the most bizarre update. He says, it is funny you mentioned needing to buy pants. There is a guest staying across the way in the east courtyard, and I am fairly certain he has lost his mind. He handed me 2 pairs of pants this morning and told me to go pawn them or sell them.
And the price is just ridiculous.
It is. The ransom he is demanding is completely unhinged. He wants 20 taels of silver for 2 pairs of used pants.
To put that 20 taels into perspective, the magistrate just rewarded them with 10 taels of silver for risking their lives to destroy an entire bandit encampment.
Right, so 20 is insane.
The asking price for their own used clothing is extortionate. It is a ransom, pure and simple. Lei Ming and Chen Liang immediately recognize the description of the garments, demand that the innkeeper hand them over, and quickly get dressed.
Once their dignity is restored, the embarrassment instantly evaporates and transforms into aggressive indignation. They demand the innkeeper lead them to this crazy guest. They storm across the inn to the east courtyard. As they approach, they hear a voice inside the room complaining loudly with a distinct southern accent about how slow the innkeeper is at selling a simple pair of pants. Lei and Chen kick the door open, ready for a fight, and they see a man sitting casually at a table.
The text pauses here to provide a meticulous, highly stylized description of this new character, signaling his importance.
What does he look like?
He is not a common thief. He is dressed impeccably. He wears a blue scholar hat, a finely tailored blue cloak, a green silk belt, and thin-soled boots designed for silent movement. He is described as handsome, with thick eyebrows and large piercing eyes. He looks like a refined scholar, not a roadside bandit.
Liming takes one look at this perfectly dressed scholar, and the anger drains out of him. He points a finger and shouts, You are the one playing a joke on us," because they recognize him instantly. This man is a legendary figure in their world. His name is Liu Rui, and his reputation is preceded by one of the most incredibly intimidating nicknames in martial arts literature, treading on snow without a trace.
Treading on snow without a trace implies a level of lightfoot technique, or Jigong, that is near supernatural. It means he can move so swiftly and lightly that he doesn't break the crust of fresh snow. He is the ultimate stealth operative, basically a ghost.
It is the ultimate assassin moniker. And what is this legendary ghost doing with his unparalleled stealth abilities? He is breaking into his friend's motel room in the dead of night, bypassing all their martial arts instincts, purely to steal their pants while they sleep and extort them for breakfast money.
This sequence perfectly encapsulates the unique dynamics of the Jianghu, the rivers and lakes.
The rivers and lakes.
Yes, that is the literary term for the martial arts underworld. It's a parallel society that operates alongside, and often completely outside, the official imperial laws. Within this world, these men belong to a sworn brotherhood known as the 36 Friends of Yushan. The pants-stealing incident is not a crime. It is an elaborate, high-level fraternity prank executed by a master of stealth to humiliate his sworn brothers.
It shows that despite the immense violence they are capable of and the heavy moral burdens they carry as vigilantes, there is a deep familial affection between them. They're a tightly knit group of brothers who find joy in aggressively messing with one another. However, the laughter in the end does not last long at all. Once the prank is acknowledged and the innkeeper is shooed away, the men sit down and the conversation takes a very dark, very serious turn.
The transition from comedy back to life and death stakes is instantaneous. Liu Rui explains his presence at the inn. He is not just wandering aimlessly, he is on a mission. He is operating under direct orders from the mother of another one of their sworn brothers, a man named Yang Ming. He has been scouring the roads trying to locate him. This prompts Lei Ming and Chen Liang to deliver some devastating news regarding the current state of their brotherhood.
They sit Liu Rui down and explain that a massive betrayal has fractured their group. Another member of their inner circle, a man named Hua Yunlong, has gone completely rogue. He hasn't just walked away. He has actively turned against them. He has been committing horrific, evil acts across the region, and worst of all, he has severely injured 3 of their own friends in combat.
The depth of this betrayal really requires context. Lei and Chen explain that the Brotherhood, specifically Yang Ming, had previously issued Green Forest invitations on behalf of Hua Yunlong.
What are Green Forest invitations?
The Green Forest is a colloquialism for the outlaw or vigilante community. To issue an invitation means to formally vouch for someone, to use your own accumulated honor and reputation to establish them within the underworld economy. Yang Ming built Hua Yunlong up, gave him a platform and legitimacy, and Hua Yunlong repaid that profound kindness with venomous, violent betrayal.
It is a complete shattering of the core ethic of the Jianghu. In a world without police, your word and your brotherhood are literally your only armor. Hua Yunlong didn't just physically hurt 3 men, he destroyed the sacred trust of the sworn oath. When Liu Rui hears this, his reaction is visceral. The text specifically notes that he bites his teeth in hatred. The scholarly prankster vanishes and the assassin emerges. He immediately makes a solemn vow of lethal vengeance. He tells his brothers, "Whenever I see him, I must end his life."
The mandate is set, but the overlapping complexities of a hero's life mean they never have just one problem to solve.
Never just one.
Exactly. Liu Rui mentions that he has been using his stealth skills to stake out this village for days because of rumors concerning a local villain named Wu Kun.
And Wu Kun has a nickname that is just as intimidating, but in a much darker way than Liu Rui's. He is known as the soul-chasing Tai Sui.
That nickname carries heavy astrological and cultural dread. A Tai Sui refers to the deity of the year in Chinese astrology, a figure associated with profound misfortune, bad luck, and unavoidable calamity.
You don't want to mess with the Tai Sui.
You really don't. To call a mortal man a soul-chasing Tai Sui is to label him a local tyrant of the most oppressive, inescapable order. He is a walking disaster for the common people. Liu Rui explicitly states that he came to this village to investigate Wu Kun. If the rumors of his tyrannical, evil acts are verified, Liu Rui intends to bypass the local magistrate entirely and assassinate Wu Kun for the good of the populace.
So the agenda for the day is set. Hunt down a traitorous sworn brother and assassinate a local astrological tyrant. Lei Ming and Chen Liang are entirely on board. They say, great, let's go investigate this tyrant together right now. The three heroes finish their breakfast, grab their weapons, leave the three prophets in, and head out onto the road. But the pacing of this narrative is absolutely relentless. They do not even make it past the outskirts of the village before they stumble directly into a brand new life-or-death crisis.
The world of the Jiangtu is constantly presented as a landscape saturated with suffering. As they walk out of the village, their attention is drawn to a secluded area where they witness man in the active process of committing suicide.
It is this striking, tragic image. They see a man who has thrown a rope over a branch and is in the middle of stringing himself up to hang. He is weeping uncontrollably, and he is screaming at the sky, cursing the heavens for their apathy. He cries out, "Blind gods, heaven and earth without eyes, let it be done, let it be done."
The visual details the text provides here are very important for the hero's assessment of the situation. The text notes that the suicidal man is wearing decent, respectable clothing. He has a blue silk hat and a well-made cloak.
So he's not a beggar.
No, this instantly tells the heroes that this is not a starving person who has succumbed to famine. This is a man of some means, a respectable citizen who has been driven to absolute cosmic despair by some acute, unendurable injustice.
The heroes don't hesitate for a second. They rush over, physically intervene, and cut the man down from the tree before he can choke to death. They sit him on the ground and gently ask him what could possibly drive a man of his standing to such a desperate act. The man sighs heavily and tells them, "I am better off dead." He then proceeds to tell them his tragic story from beginning to end. Now, the text itself uses this as a classic cliffhanger, withholding the actual details of the man's story for the next chapter. But what the text does show us is the immediate, visceral reaction of the three heroes to whatever he says.
The physical reaction of the heroes is the defining trait of their archetype. The text explicitly states that upon hearing the man's tragic tale, their blood boils.
Their blood boils. They don't say, "Wow, that's terrible, you should go to the magistrate." They instantly internalize his pain, and they decide right then and there on the side of the road to interject themselves into this stranger's life and violently meddle in whatever affair has driven him to suicide. Which brings me to my ultimate question when reading this source material. Do these guys ever just take a single day off?
The structural answer provided by the genre is no, they absolutely cannot, and that relentless pace is entirely by design. What we are observing in this sequence is the cyclical, unending nature of classic Wuxia and vernacular literature. The fundamental premise of the world they inhabit is that the official structure of society is broken. The bureaucratic authorities cannot be everywhere at once. And, as we saw perfectly illustrated with the corrupt clerk Du Fang earlier, sometimes the official authorities are actually the facilitators of the suffering.
The system is completely rigged, so the burden of balancing the scales falls entirely on these wandering martial artists.
Exactly. These heroes are trapped by the weight of their own morality and the strict codes of their brotherhood. They lack the psychological ability to physically walk past a suffering person without intervening. That phrase, "their blood boils," is crucial. It describes a physiological, involuntary reaction to injustice. It is not a calculated choice. It is a compulsion to act.
They just have to do it.
They have to. This compulsion is the narrative engine that fuels these classic tales. The story is a constant overlapping matrix of quests for justice. The very moment one massive plot is resolved, like the intricate exoneration of the widow Sun Kangxi, three more crises are instantly introduced to take its place. The hunt for the traitor Hua Yunlong, the impending assassination of the local tyrant Wu Kun, and now the tragic mystery of this suicidal stranger. The road never ends.
It is a never-ending crusade against a tide of corruption.